This is an actual how-to video, and the question I'm trying to answer is how would I use the account of enslaved people running away from upstate New York to instill a positive Black identity in children? First thing, when working with children, we should always be mindful of their chronological age and their developmental stage. And in some cases, be aware of any traumatic experience they might have had and be careful not to trigger them unless you have the qualification to hold a safe space after that is done. So the age I'm looking at is a 12-year-old who has met most of the developmental markers. So I'd ask the child questions to ascertain what the child already knows. For example, what do you think of our enslaved ancestors? Do you think we should be proud of them or ashamed? If no, why? If yes, why? When working with kids, I'm always mindful to use open-ended questions because otherwise they'll yes-no you to death and the conversation will not go anywhere. Second, I would share about the importance of remembering the past by using the word Sankofa. It originates from Ghana, and the word means go back and take what is at risk of being left behind. I would also share contemporary examples of how Black history is being erased in the US, and hence the need for me to remind the child of these stories. Then I would read one of the accounts of runaway enslaved people, and I would ask the child to create a story using the information provided. Here, the child could either write the story, if that's something, or the child could also choose to draw the story. We have to be mindful, and maybe some child would want to dramatize the story they made up. We just have to be mindful that children have different forms of intelligences and to allow them to excel in what they're good at. At the end, I would debrief and ask the child what was helpful and what wasn't. And I'm careful when I ask for feedback for children to make sure they know it will not hurt my feelings if they say something negative. If they said, "Oh, miss, the exercise was so boring," I will just say, "Then how could I have made it more interesting?" I always remind them that I'm learning and I'm always growing, so any feedback is welcome. Another question I'd ask in the debrief is whether the exercise changed or affirmed their previous views of the ancestors. So now I'm going to show an example of this, of what I said so far. So here's the abstract, the example I'm taking from the accounts of people running away. This one is about Jack Ginn and an unnamed boy who ran away from Crawl Toll of Albany. Jack was 36, 6 feet tall, wearing a white French coat, leather jacket, a pair of blue camlet breeches, and trousers, and he also carried a gun. Ginn was 5 feet 6 inches, about 35. She was wearing a holland short gown, petticoat, and they took a 3-year-old with them. And the reward offered for their return was £5. Including information about the reward can open the door for further questions and a new subject to take up with a child at another time. So here's my example of a story I made up based on that abstract that I just read. When Jack's mother gave birth to him, he entered the world silently. His skin was the color of deep, dark chocolate. His eyes were the color of molten chocolate. His legs and arms were longer than other children, and his mother's eyes filled with tears of joy and sorrow. She was happy because she had a healthy, beautiful baby. She was sad because Jack was born in a time when indigenous people and people of African heritage were enslaved. Jin was born a year after Jack. Jack's mother was the midwife who brought her into the world of enslavement. When Jin came into the world, her mother departed from it, and Jin's father wept. Jack's mother took care of Jin herself, nursing her with her own milk. Jin was a lovely ball of chocolate, just like Jack, but smaller. She was beautiful in every way. Jack and Jin remained at the same plantation together for most of their life. They were secretly married but did everything to ensure they never had a child. They did not want to bring a child into slavery. Then their mother died of pneumonia because she was always cooking in a smoky outdoor kitchen. Then Massa died, and his 30-year-old daughter married a 50-year-old man. The new Massa was very cruel, a drunk and a gambler, and he decided to sell the cook and have Jin keep the baby. And he wanted Jin to sleep in the adjoining room next to his, so he could have access to her. So Jack and Jin decided to escape and take 3-year-old baby Kofi with them. Jin was responsible for taking Massa and Mrs.'s clothing, and Jack, who always went hunting with Massa, took the gun. And there they are now, on the run. What do you think will happen to them? So yeah, there's some choices I made, like not making fairy tales out of real harsh stuff. So I could have said they escaped and they lived happily ever after. But I don't want to fill that kind of delusion into children. I find it to be disrespectful to them because they're smart enough to understand life is complex. I am delicate to not say things. I'm delicate with information about, hey, Massa wanted to have his way with the girl. Because you don't really want to introduce stuff like that to children. The point of remembering this kind of history is not to, go all into the suffering porn, like this is how they suffered. Yes, we know how they suffered, but the point of building a positive Black identity is emphasizing this is not just how they suffered, this is how they survived. This is how clearly that they were human beings in very difficult situations, and any means they used to try to survive, to try to get to a place of thriving, that was admirable. So that for me is where the positivity comes. It's not the insistent on, let me see these people being whipped, let me see all the things that Massa did, because that somehow centers Massa in the story, which I was careful not to give them even names in the story, to make sure you know that this story is about Jack, Jin, and Kofi. I didn't give the mother's and father's name, also not because they're irrelevant, but because they represented all our mothers, all our fathers, all the people who cried because we're beautiful, all the people who cried because they knew what we would face in this world, all the people who hoped for us and want us to be thriving. So yeah, this one, I welcome any kind of feedback. I try to put my work of working with children on mental health issue and behavioral issues into the outline. I'll also leave the outline in the description section. Again, thank you for listening. Have a great day.